They said the house was empty. No lights, no neighbors, no reason anyone should be inside. But at 3:17 a.m., someone started knocking on the bedroom door from the inside. Find somewhere dark and quiet. Put your headphones on. Listen closely now. Tonight's story is called The Compass That Lies.
Metal scraped on metal in the dark. The needle flipped, and instead of settling north, it trembled and pointed into blackness. A name left the man's mouth like a rope he couldn't hold. Mara! He reached for the compass, and the hand that held it felt colder than the air.
They found the compass 3 years after she disappeared. Not in a stream or buried in the brush, but in a crooked drawer of the old Ridge Lodge. A brass compass with a leather loop. The glass fine but fogged. The needle bent like someone had tried to teach it the wrong way. The owner of the lodge, Marcel, kept to himself. He poured coffee for strangers, mended hiking boots, and for 20 years had hung the same map behind the counter. The town smelled of pine sap, diesel, and last night's rain. Players at the diner joked about fog and bears. But when the compass arrived back with the sheriff's evidence bag, the jokes died fast. The hiker, Mara Lee, was small, deliberate, and very careful. She taught navigation to college students, liked to mark waypoints in a leather field journal, and laughed at the idea of being lost. 2 seasons earlier, she left Ridge Trail with a small pack and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. She did not come back. Search teams combed switchbacks and ravines. Dogs followed scents and returned more confused than triumphant. Records closed with a line that read, "No trace." That is, until the compass surfaced.
On a late summer afternoon, a hiking friend, Tom, decided to test the compass. They wanted something small, simple, confirm the needle, check bearings, laugh about paperwork. The first thing the needle did was refuse. When Tom held it level, it spun once, twice, and steadied toward what should have been east. He shrugged and flipped his wrist. "Old brass," he said, magnetized by a truck or an engine. But later, looking at his map, he found a trail marked in a place where no trail existed. A thin, inked line that curved away from the printed path and stopped at a dark patch with no name. Tom laughed then, but the laugh came with a little click, like a hinge that had seen damp, and the map wouldn't stop feeling like a promise.
That was the first small impossibility. Then others followed. A fisherman said his needle turned toward the center of the lake even while his boat drifted. A mail carrier swore hers pointed toward a field where last year's fence posts had recently vanished. Photographs changed. Not all at once, but in the slow shift way of erosion. A face in a group shot blurred at the edges. A name on a plaque bled into the grain of the wood. A ledger that had once listed a record of property transfers showed an empty page where an entire family should have been. People in Ridge began to notice details that didn't add up, and then started to forget that those details had ever existed. This is where the town's real fear began. Not because the needle pointed wrongly, but because the world around the needle started rearranging to match its lie.
At first, there were explanations. Bad magnetism, human error, a mapmaker's ink fade. Memory is slippery in places that wait. But when a search party organized by the sheriff followed the compass into what the needle insisted was a shortcut, a ravine the maps marked as impassable, the shortcut started to make their own claims. Tracks appeared where no animals had walked, a cairn of stones arranged like a small altar, and the field journal that belonged to Mara turned up at the bottom of a hollow, pages blank except for one line. It points to what wants a direction. Someone in the party swore they heard whispering under the wind, voices that arranged themselves into names, and the radio went dead in the same instant a compass trembled. Can you hear it? The night remembers.
They made a choice that divided the town. Some wanted to bury the compass in the quarry, lock it in an evidence locker, hand it to the university for study. Others, people whose grief still fit in their hands, listened to its promise. It points to the missing, they said.
it can bring them back. One woman, Caro, whose brother had vanished 6 months before, held the needle and felt a tug that made her knees soft. She followed. That night she walked alone where the needle led and did not return. When the search party found her boots at the lip of a ravine, the compass lay open on a flat rock beside them. The needle settled on a place that didn't exist on any printed map, but had been drawn, faint and wrong, on Tom's map. A dark patch with a single word in the margin. Stay.
After Caro, the rules of the town changed. People stopped asking why the needle pointed where it did and started to watch who trusted it. Friendships shifted. Marriages strained under the weight of questions. How do you argue with metal that remembers someone you wish you hadn't lost? The sheriff's log filled with notes that contradicted each other. Times moved. Witness statements overlapped and then didn't. Photographs developed with smudges that were not scratches, but erasures. The compass did not simply mislead feet. It made records bend like reeds in a river. It seemed to feed on direction, or on the yearning behind it, the wanting to find, to return, to correct a wrong. What it fed on, it rewrote.
Then the night when the thing at the compass's center revealed itself, it began as ordinary noises, branches crackling, the distant call of a coyote, and then tightened. The search party that had once laughed at superstition found themselves on a narrow bench above a dry wash as the compass spun in Marcel's hand. The needle accelerated as if searching for a lock. A sound rose from the ravine, not quite wind, not quite voice, an arrangement of calls like a chorus learning a single word. The party moved closer. Someone whispered, "It wants a direction." And the whisper returned the name of someone from the town, clear as a bell. Heart beat fast now. They followed. Footsteps, breath, the scrape of leather, voices answering without mouths. Tom broke into a run when something slipped out from under the brush, something long and impossibly pale that didn't scream but rearranged the air around it. 2 men tried to grab at it, and their hands passed through like through smoke. The compass fell, landed needle up, and the needle stilled, pointing not toward safety, but directly at the thing. "Run," someone said, but the map had already shifted under their feet.
They escaped in pieces. Some made it down the switchbacks, bleeding and broken by branches. Others vanished into the shallow dark, as if the night swallowed just the shape of them. In the morning, with mouths full of cold coffee and too loud silence, people compared stories and found fewer overlaps than they needed. Some witnesses claimed the thing walked like a man, others that it melted into moss. The compass, when retrieved, had a tiny hairline crack across the glass. Inside, the needle had been threaded through with something fine and shining, like a sliver of bone or root. In the files later, official reports called the events miscommunication caused by environmental conditions. Locals called it readjustment. The word missing acquired a new gravity, a kind of grammatical weight the town learned to avoid saying aloud.
When I went to Ridge, I handled the compass with gloves. It fit like an accusation in the palm. The field journal for Morrow was half full of straight, careful notes, and then, midway, a page of drawings. Compass roses with petals missing, a map with a shaded oval where no lake should be, and a single sentence. It lies toward what it wants to make true. I asked the lodgekeeper why the compass had been in his drawer. He sipped his coffee and said, "You don't put things like that away if you don't think they'll come back when you need them." He also said that sometimes the needle points to things that should be left unread. He was tired and Lise are tired, like an animal that keeps returning to the same hole to see if the predator is gone.
So where does that leave us? The compass is locked in a university lab now. Students run tests. The needle behaves with decorum in the light and a crowd. It will point to magnetic north on demand when it has an audience. But late at night, when the lab is quiet and the rain is against the windows, a grad student swore it turned toward the dark corridor and then toward a file drawer that had been empty this morning. The town of Ridge still hangs its map behind the diner counter. People drive past the ravine but do not stop. Names are fewer in conversation. And sometimes a passerby will feel a tug in their chest, like a thread pulling them to an address they do not recognize. The compass did not leave only loss. It left a new grammar for how loss operates. It can be coaxed, pointed at, named, and sometimes returned, only to become something else. If you ever hold a compass and the needle insists on wrongness, notice the hunger behind your desire to follow it. Ask yourself, are you hoping to find someone, or are you hoping the thing that points will fix the hole? Because things that claim to guide can also rearrange the terrain around your wanting, and the forest learns your habits quickly. Between the shadows, the night remembers.
If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who listens in the dark. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember my signature line. Until next time, check the corners. I'm Samnang, and this was The Compass That Lies.
If you're still here, it means the story followed you all the way to the end. Take a breath. Look around your room. Make sure everything is exactly where you left it.